A hardened heart will keep you from perceiving spiritual truth. Psalm 95 verses 1 to 2, 6 to 7, and 8 to 9. If today you hear his voice, harden not your hearts. Come, let us sing joyfully to the Lord, let us acclaim the rock of our salvation. Let us come into his presence with thanksgiving, let us joyfully sing psalms to him. Come, let us bow down in worship, let us kneel before the Lord who made us. For he is our God, and we are the people he shepherds, the flock he guides. Oh, that today you would hear his voice, harden not your hearts as at Meribah, as in the day of Massah in the desert. Where your fathers tempted me, they tested me though they had seen my works. Harden not your heart. What use would a hardened heart be? If a loaf of bread hardens, what can be done with it? Once hardened, nothing can be done to restore it. The psalm warns us against hardening our hearts, resisting God's will as Israel did in the wilderness. When facing hardships in the desert, they were convinced that God couldn't deliver them, and as a result they lost their faith. Losing your faith doesn't happen all at once, it comes about when you purposely ignore God's will. Too often we see children of regular church-going families leave for college and leave their faith. Yes, mom and dad laid the faith foundation through their example of Christian living. So what happened to the college student? They start stepping away from God's commandments when they skip mass to study. Or they might skip it again to play tennis, or maybe to avoid criticism from fellow students. In any event, these small steps accumulate into the giant step of losing their faith, as did the Israelites in the desert, and leaving the church that sustains their faith and trust in God. The Israelites had just returned from the Babylonian captivity. Babylon worshipped many gods, but this psalm makes the point that there is only one true God. When can you tell if you are hearing God's voice? First, you must be willing to listen for his voice and then act in accord with his will. Reading the Bible is a good way to determine his will. God also communicates to us in other ways, through other people, places, and things that recall his will. If you question that little voice within telling you to do or not to do something, then check the message against Scripture. Feeling guilty or unforgiven, then read the story of the good thief, or the one about the woman caught in adultery. Feeling betrayed by a family member, then read about King David's thoughts and actions toward his son Absalom. It becomes easy to harden your heart when you aren't close to God, his church, and his worship. Meribah means quarreling or strife, and Massah means testing. Both are references to where Moses drew water from the Israelites' grumbling and lack of faith. Don't quarrel with God's will while attempting to test him against your will. Instead, worship and trust him to do what is best for the salvation of your eternal soul. Have a heart that never hardens, and a temper that never tires, and a touch that never hurts. Charles Dickens.